Also the most guns, and also the most religious.
Are we the most religious?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
More than, say, like Iran? Where they have...
I don't know if we're more than Iran. I didn't look at the map that closely, but there was a map I saw, and it had, like, belief in God in red, and it was just the U.S. was like looked like the reddest country to me. I could find the map for you.
That's interesting. I'd like to know.
We
like,
are
what is
like
the
compared
difference in belief in
to
God?
compared to every other. Let me put it to you this way: compared to every other English-speaking country.
Sure, Western world, like England, has a very different system than we do in terms of belief in.
So most God-fearing, wealthiest, and most guns.
Yeehaw, we win.
And biggest military. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you read that book? I think it was called Sapiens.
Yes.
Because when you were talking about the ancient man, it made me think of that, because one of the things I remember from that book was that the Homo sapien, at least if I could be misremembering this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but one of his ideas was that people as we know it, like basically murdered all of these other like Neanderthals and different different species of humanoids or whatever the correct term is, and that's how we spread. That there was like a mass genocide, because that at one time, and I don't know if this conflicts with what you're talking about or not, but that at one time, this may have been post the environmental event that wiped out the more advanced civilization. At one time, there were all these different types of on the planet, and obviously we won, and the Neanderthals are not here anymore. And if I remember correctly, his thesis was that we did that with like killing, and that there's something very innately violent in our DNA.
Well, it's certainly plausible. We've certainly done a lot of killing, and it makes sense that if there was something that was similar to us but not quite us and somehow posed a threat or was in competition with us, that we would kill it. Yeah. There's also theories about biological integration, that we mated the Neanderthals out of existence, and there's some substantiation of that in the fact that a lot of people, particularly people of European descent, have Neanderthal genetics. So there was some sort of interbreeding with people.
Yeah, I think both of those things could be true.
Yeah. Right? I mean, to deny the idea that human beings committed genocide or were violent towards others is ridiculous.
Right,
I mean,
we've
it's
seen
nothing but evidence of that.
Yeah.
Of us doing it to us. So the idea that we wouldn't do it to like the Hobbit people that lived on the island of Flores. Or
exactly.
I'm sure we killed everybody. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's like they keep finding new humans that don't exist anymore, like the Denisovans, which is fairly recent. You know, they found
I don't know about that one.
Oh, the Denisovans, that was in Russia, and I believe that was one of the first examples they found of it, but it's a completely new strain of human being that shares some of our biology, but it's not a Homo sapien like modern humans the way we are today. They think there was probably quite a few, like there was some parallel evolution going on, and, you know, this competition, just like there is in other primates, right?
Yeah.
There's the bonobos, and there's traditional chimpanzees, and yeah, so here's the Denisovans. They're just like there's differences in the anatomy that are innate. They were almost looked like they're thicker. They got larger heads. It's a totally different kind of a thing. And I feel like this was fairly recently. Jamie, did they say like when they found the they look much
cave?
It's
the
a cave, right?
Cave is what they found, I think.
Yeah.
In that.
And so it's a.
So what's the difference? The lungs are different.
Yeah, it's just they look bigger. They look thicker and more stout, and there's a bunch of differences in the femoral length and the shape of the heads, and
wow,
that's Neanderthals. But just Google Denisovan history, and so we get a time frame instead of just images. Because why is that only showing you images? Just go to all, not images. Yeah. There. So Denisovans are a distinct species of humanoid, a close. What'd you do? Oh, I was looking at the upper left-hand corner. That's okay. Distinct subspecies of archaic human that ranged across Asia during the lower and middle Paleolithic. Denisovans are known from few physical remains, and consequently, most of what is known about them comes from DNA evidence. And I think that was like, what year? 2010. Yeah, so 12 years ago.
What is the Paleolithic? How long ago is that?
That's a good question. What's the Paleolithic, Jamie?
I used to know this kind of thing.
Yeah, me too. From around 3 million to around 300,000 years ago.
That's the lower.
The Middle Paleolithic period was which followed would last from 300,000 to 50,000 years ago. So they lived alongside of us. And they were a totally different kind of person.
Don't you think our ethics should be farther along if we've been around for that many hundreds of thousands of years?
I think that's the part of this theory, the ancient catastrophe theory, is that we had to reboot. And this is the idea about it, that, you know, we did get knocked back into chaos and like a severely harsh primal way of living. The way to describe it is like this is an instantaneous ending of the Ice Age due to impacts all over the Earth. And there's evidence of this in the form of nanodiamonds, which it's called trinitite, which exist at the Trinity explosion. When they first detonated a nuclear bomb, they found that the impact created these microdiamonds, these nanodiamonds. Well, they find that all over the Earth at around 12,800 years ago, which would indicate that the impact was so substantial that it created these things.
But I'm saying since then, we've developed a lot of really advanced technology.
Mm-hmm.
But has there been the same evolution in our ethics?
Well, there's most certainly.
Thinking?
If you study Steven Pinker's work, this is the safest, like most understanding, least racist, least violent, least rapey time in human history. If you go back and think of all the horrific crimes that have been committed since the beginning of time, and you look at them on a scale, even though we say, oh, there's so much chaos in the world today, there's so much horror, and that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But there's less than there's ever been before.
It's better.
And, they call Pinker an apologist for just talking about data, but it's like very clear. If you just look at the sheer numbers of murders, the sheer numbers of all the horrific things that people have been known for forever, there's less of them now than ever before. And I think it will continue to get less and less and less. But it's not perfect.
Well, the dentistry is better too, right?
Yeah, there's a lot better.
Imagine going to a dentist.
Imagine getting an ACL surgery 500 years ago.
Yeah.
There's none. You're fucked. You blow your knee out, you're dead.
Just use a fucking piece
use
of stone.
A cane.
Yeah.
Use a weird fucking knee brace made with goat skins and shit and twigs. Yeah, it's better now, and it will continue to get more complex. Whether or not it's preferable is what's interesting.
Because, really? I would never go there.
No, not
personally.
I don't mean in terms of ethics. I mean in terms of technology, like the medical technology and the advances. Whether it's like the way we live now. Look, if you were a person who lived in the days of Genghis Khan and you got invaded, it's way better today than then.
Sure, you get a cold, you fucking die probably.
Yeah, well, not only that, the amount of violence, the sheer amount of horrific violence from hordes of raiders coming into your village and butchering everybody and lighting everything on fire, that was a commonplace occurrence. It's less common now and will be less common in the future. But what I'm saying is that I think that human beings, as we are biologically today, are more suited in the way we interface with the world with a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. I think it's more satisfying to our actual, our intellectual and physical bodies. The way we exist with earth and nature. People find great peace in living in the country and fishing for their food. And I think there's something.
I totally buy into that.
I don't think we've evolved physically the same way technology has evolved.
Right. I mean, it's even comes down to something like this room, which has a conditioned
Yeah.
air temperature.
Right.
And we don't experience the extremes of temperature on our skin that we would normally have been going through for thousands of years.
You would have no idea right now if it's August or January or we're in this.
Yeah, and you can live in 72 degrees like year round or
Yep.
or whatever you like, 69.
Yeah.
And nobody knows what that does, but maybe that's part of why people are so have a certain amount of like feeling of cognitive dissonance and overload because they're not getting the same amount of sensory input
Yeah.
that would have been in the that you would have felt had you been living in nature with Genghis Khan as your.
Well, I mean, if you just look at in terms of what's available in the United States in terms of environments, what people would say arguably is the most disconnected part of the world is California. And they're the least connected to weather because every day is beautiful. It's perfect. They don't have to worry about huddling up for the winter. They don't have to worry about storms coming.
You lost me on a turn there. I'm down with California being the most artificial. What do you mean disconnected?
Disconnected to nature.
Oh, to nature.
To
Oh, yeah,
weather.
because it's a fucking desert.
Yeah, no weather
LA
events.
is a desert.
It's stable
Yeah.
all year round. It never
Yeah.
rains. It's
Yeah.
never too cold.
It's
You
what
could
I don't like
exist
about
as a
LA.
homeless person so easily.
Yeah, it's what I don't like. One of the things I don't like about LA. One of
Yeah.
the many things.
It's not
Is-
good for you.
It's not.
No.
I need the weather to kind of remind me of change,
Yeah.
you know, and that I can change because the world's changing.
It denotes time. It
Yeah.
lets you know that things are happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the weirdest things about California, and it just adds to the weirdness of what it's like to live in a city that's dominated by show business.
Yeah.
It's like also you don't have to deal with weather.
I'm not going to defend LA. I mean,
No, I mean, like I lived there forever. I love lots of aspects of LA.
Really?
But
yeah, it's a tough place to live. I
it's
think.
a weird place. That's
Yeah.
the point. Is it's just weird.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people are. I mean, you could certainly be a nuanced, very evolved. You want some coffee?
Yeah, I'll try some.
You could be.
Thank you.
No problem.
By the way, thank you for taking such good care of me and the hospitality.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's really nice. Very stand up.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm a fan. I love your work.
Thank you.
But I'm just saying that I just think that, you know, we are part of nature, and I think we're set up to experience like that. We're set up to experience cold weather, and I think it enhances a sense of community when you have to bundle up together because a hurricane's coming. And you know, there's a thing that happens with people. There's negative things. There's looting and crazy things that happens when chaos ensues. But I think that ultimately human beings are better off when we deal with weather and we deal with the fact that nature is a real factor that you have to take into consideration, and you are ultimately powerless. And you just have to do your best to prepare and get ready for it. But it's happening whether you like it or not. If you live in Boston and it's January and a blizzard's coming, there's not a fucking goddamn thing you can do to turn that off. There's not a button you can switch. There's not a fan they can blow that sends it out into the ocean. You're dealing with that fucking snow. It's coming in, and everybody's got to prepare. And you get food, and you get candles, and you get firewood, and you ride that bitch out. And I think that's good for people.
I do too. I
Yeah.
do too. I think being in nature, at least for me, I don't know about other people, but it's very important for me. Like the wilderness and contact with environments that aren't man-made.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. It's environments that exist outside of us.
Yeah, I think so too.
And there's just something very humbling about that, and very there's something about it that just centers me. You know, I mean, I'm not alone in that. I'm not saying anything that radically interesting, but I think it's something that it's harder and harder to find. You have to go seek it out.
Yeah.
Right? You have to like intentionally be like, hey, in 2 weeks I'm going to go camping. I'm going to go on a backpacking trip. Whereas at a different time in our lives, it would just hit you in the face because you wake up in the morning and you're in, you know, you're in it.
Not only that, I
nature.
think human beings have evolved to deal with those sort of complex factors of nature. It's like an inherent part of what we are as a human being. It's the way the mind is structured, the way the human consciousness is structured.
Yeah.
I think that's like we evolved this way. And I think when that is absent, there's like this like sort of confusion.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's good for us.
Yeah. I agree. Do you do you link up drugs with nature?
Well, I think drugs are certainly a part of nature, especially some drugs, especially things like psilocybin.
Yeah.
You know, have you ever listened to the stone ape theory? Do you know about that?
I actually read about it last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I read about it last night when I was like looking around for stuff that had been on your show, and I read about it last night. I used to cover psychedelic drugs for Rolling Stone, and so I used to write about them. I had not read that particular theory, but I used to think a lot about psychedelics, and I was part of a little bit a group of people that knew Alexander Shulgin, who was like the godfather of MDMA. And but I actually the stoned ape theory, I literally just read about it.
It's really fascinating.
I'll buy it. I'm happy to buy into it. It doesn't seem like I don't know like how controversial or accepted it is, but it doesn't seem outside the realm of possibility to me.
I don't think it is either, but it's very controversial.
Is it really?
Yeah, very.
I mean,
your main protagonist in Echo 3, isn't she researching psychedelics to help soldiers with PTSD? Isn't that part of what she's doing?
Yeah, she's researching psychedelics to help with addiction, which is, although PTSD is another illness that people are exploring with psychedelics. I mean, psychedelics started as a at least in this country as a therapeutic.
Which ones?
LSD.
Well, they tried it as a lot of things. They tried it as mind experiment. You know, they tried it as mind